Alright guys, so today's video we're going to talk about the brand new Apple AirPods Pro 2nd Gen. Now I do want to go ahead and start this video with probably what most people are asking when it comes to this pair. If you own the 1st Gen, is it worth owning the 2nd pair? Or if you're not even in Apple's ecosystem, should you own the AirPods Pro? And my answer to both of those are no. I don't personally think it's worth the upgrade, although I do think there is some very nice improvements with these over the 1st Gen. And if you're not in Apple's ecosystem, you can't even take advantage of a lot of the features that the AirPods Pro has. So we're going to talk about a lot of those features. We're going to talk about what all comes inside the box, talk about the improvements and the sound, and see if it's worth the $250 price tag. So to start with, let's go ahead and talk about the pairing process. Now, if you are an Apple user, you know with AirPods, whenever you pop open the lid, you have that pop-up connection that comes up. It makes things very simple to just start working. But with the 2nd Gen, if you actually have your AirPods Pro engraved with anything, even a symbol, the pop-up that shows up on your screen, it'll actually even show the engraving that's on your case on the display on the phone itself. Now mine are not engraved, I actually just picked these up from the store, but I think that is a very cool feature. It just kind of gives it a personal touch. And another thing that they've added with the 2nd Gen is they're taking an extra step to make spatial audio better. In fact, you use your iPhone to take kind of like a side scan of your face. It's basically giving a scan to kind of give your AirPods a sense of depth and try to give a realism to the spatial audio. So they are focusing in on that, and they are, trying to push spatial audio a little bit more, which we'll talk about. And then they claim to have 2 times the noise canceling over the 1st Gen. Now I really don't know how to measure that, but I will say this. The noise canceling on the 2nd Gen is better. In fact, the 2nd Gen does a much better job of blocking out people talking and any kind of noise that has a higher frequency. Now the 1st Gen already did a good job of blocking out lower tones, so AC units and engine noises. So if you're traveling and you're on a plane, it cuts out a lot of that rumble. But now with the 2nd Gen, if you're on a plane, not only does it cut out a lot of the engine noise, it also starts to cut out a lot more of those people talking. So it does block out more sound, and I think that it is very noticeable. In the transparency mode, even though in the 1st Gen was really good, I feel like they are better in the 2nd Gen as well. Now, I don't feel like the transparency mode is, twice as good as what was on the 1st Gen, but you can easily hear your surroundings. It just picks up everything in a very natural way, and it's so easy to carry on a conversation while using the AirPods Pro. But now they have adaptive transparency where they're using the microphones. So if you're around a situation, let's say you're coming up on a construction site and there's all of a sudden this really loud boom. Instead of those mics being so sensitive that it just brings in that really loud noise and it's just too much to bear, it kind of brings it down in a way to keep things level. So there is some new technology that's going in with these. And with saying that, they have now upgraded to an H2 chip. So instead of the H1, which was Apple's best chip at the time, the H2 chip is supposed to be smarter for noise canceling. It's also supposed to be better for the spatial audio, and it's giving you better battery life on the 2nd Gen, because with noise canceling turned on, you can actually get 6 hours now instead of the 4 hours on the original, and you can get about 30 hours total using the case. Now this again is with the noise canceling on, so if you use these with the noise canceling off, I found that I'm getting around 8 hours on the earbuds, and so that's moving the battery life up to about 40 hours total using the case. So battery life is much improved on these. And also with the new pair, they're using a new custom driver and amplifier. Now it's still using an 11mm driver, but again, they have changed that to try to get a little bit more out of it. And the amplifier is tuning these in a different way compared to the 1st Gen. Now we'll talk about that a little bit more once we get into the sound. Now as far as the IP rating on the new ones, it does have IPX4 on the earbuds, which is what the 1st Gen had, but now the case also has an IPX4 rating, where the 1st Gen didn't have any IP rating on the case. So that's a little bit more peace of mind while using these, that if the case just happens to get wet in rain or anything like that, they're going to be fine. But still, this is not one of those where you'd want to drop the case or the earbuds into water. Now, as far as what all they've included inside the box, another difference with these is you now get 4 sets of silicone ear tips instead of 3. They've now added an extra small ear tip. So now adding that extra small is giving you more options. And with a pair of earbuds that have active noise canceling, obviously having the right ear tip is very important. Now, another thing that they've included is the lightning cable. I don't like this decision because I think eventually Apple's going to have to move to USB-C. Everything's moving that direction. But a good thing about these is it has a MagSafe charging case, which means it's Qi wireless charging compatible. So I guess you really don't have to keep up with the charging cable. But again, if you're not using a wireless charger, you are going to have to use the lightning cable. Now, some other upgrades that they made is they've now added the U1 chip into the charging case, and this allows you to precisely locate where you left the case. And I think that is a huge upgrade because there's a lot of people that do misplace their case, so it's nice that it's on here. But speaking of the case, they've now added a lanyard spot onto the side of the case. So you can now just loop it onto, your wrist, you can loop it onto a bag, and I definitely like this decision. It's just easier to keep up with. Now, they don't include a lanyard. In fact, I don't even think they sell a lanyard for the AirPods, so you are going to have to use a generic one or maybe one that you already have. Now, another difference on the case is they've now added speakers located on the bottom. Now, this isn't for listening to music, but it now has a tone that it has when it's in pairing mode. It also has a tone to kind of notify you when the case is running low on battery. So it's just something different and actually useful to add to the case. Now, moving over to the actual AirPods themselves, as far as the design goes, they basically look exactly like the first gen. The only things that are different is they have added some different mic placements. Now, this is to obviously help with spatial audio, but this is also able to help with noise canceling and transparency. But one huge thing, and this has been my problem with a lot of Apple products, is they normally don't give you volume control. Well, now on top of still having the squeeze gestures for your play, pause, and skipping your tracks forward, going backwards, and things like that, you now can swipe on the outside up and down to control your volume. And I find this to be a huge plus because you don't have to take out your phone to actually control the volume. You can just do it all right there from the earbuds themselves. And speaking of those mic placements, they did add the mic right there at the top, but they also added an inward mic, more so that it can focus in on your voice while taking phone calls. And it's also doing a much better job of blocking out your surroundings. So you guys can be a judge by listening to a test here.
So here is the mic test using the AirPods Pro 2nd Gen. And just like the 1st Gen, I think the mics on here are very good. There is still a digital noise and there is a slight warmth to my voice, but it still sounds much better than a lot of the other microphones out there. So this is what it would sound like if you were to take a call. And so now here is the mic test with the crowd noise being played, which you can hear here, or maybe you can't. So this is what it would sound like if you were to take a call in public.
So now let's talk about the sound, because I've seen some things where people say the sound is just so much noticeably different. I can tell that there is a difference, but it's a slight difference. This is not night and day when it comes to audio quality. I've never felt like the AirPods Pro is like the best sounding earbuds out there. And they took an already good pair of earbuds and just made it slightly better when it comes to the sound. I feel like there is a little bit more of a punch when it comes to the bass. I feel like the treble is slightly brighter, and I do feel like the mids were pushed a little bit more forward, but it does have a warmer feel to it. So vocalists sound a little bit more natural. The treble has a slightly sharper sound, but again, it's not overly bright or overly detailed. And the bass now has a little bit of a punch, but it's not that subwoofer type bass. But where these really shine, and again, I feel like the 1st gen excelled in this area as well, is the soundstage and the sound imaging. I do feel like this is a fairly natural and wide sounding pair of earbuds. Being able to tell where sounds are coming from, this pair just handles with no issue, especially in spatial audio. Again, head tracking and moving your head around and hearing things in different directions. It's quite the experience to test that out with this pair. So really, my overall opinion is this. Again, I go back to the fact that if you are not an Apple user, I don't recommend these. There are much better options when it comes to sound in this price range. There's also better options even when it comes to noise canceling in this price range. But if you are a fan of spatial audio, there is a noticeable improvement here. If you want slightly better noise canceling, if you just need to block out people talking, I could recommend upgrading for that reason. And it does have slightly better battery life. So if you just feel like you're not getting enough out of the first gen, the second gen may be worth it just for that. But for anything else, the experience still is very similar. The sound is just not that much better that I would say, yes, you need to ditch your first gen and go out and buy the second gen. They do sound great. The noise canceling is great. So if you don't have the first gen and you are an Apple user, Apple makes it where it's just integrated very well into their ecosystem. And it is an improvement over the first gen, but it's just not that big of an improvement where I would say, yes, you just need to go out and buy these right now. So that kind of sums up my opinions on the brand new Apple AirPods Pro 2nd Gen. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you so much for checking out all the other videos. And as always, make sure to stay tuned for more.